It's me, Santa Claus, coming to you live from the North Pole. I'd like to remind you to leave out that milk and those cookies and to keep watching Brunswick area television. And I'll come to see you real soon.
Hi, I'm here today on Salute to Service with three of the Medina County Veteran Service Commissioners. With me today I have my boss and president, Mike Jacobson. I have the vice president, Randy Schmidt, also another one of my bosses. And I have Leland Cotting, one of the members of the commission. All three of these guys I work for, so I got to be kind of careful on what I say today. I'm glad you're all back with us, though. So let's start off with Mike. Mike?
I've been on the commission for 20 years, since 1993. I served in the Army from 1966 to 1968 and spent a little over a year over in Vietnam. I ended up being a E5 sergeant and got involved with the Medina County Veteran Service Commission, like I said, about 20 years ago, and it's, I hope to stay on for 20 more years.
And one thing I like about Mike is he's an artillery guy like myself, so I got to point that out.
Yeah.
Purple Heart recipient?
Purple Heart recipient.
Purple Heart recipient. Randy?
I've been on the commission since 2001 and have enjoyed it immensely working with the veterans and their families in the office and helping where we're allowed to help with the Ohio revised codes that guide us. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1967 to 70, and I was in Vietnam for a little over a year, and a Purple Heart recipient, and just enjoy being a part of this commission.
All right. And Mr. Cotting, Leland?
I've been commissioner for roughly about 10 years. I've enjoyed working with the veterans and helping as the veteran service does really makes the person feel good to help them get through some of the rough times. I was in the Army, 11th Airborne, made 12 jumps. Ended up driving battery commander. I was in the Airborne Artillery. And,
Oh, yeah, baby.
and and I enjoyed being in the service. I had a medical discharge. I had a problem with a Jeep driver's disease, if you know what that is. But anyway, I was discharged under medical with honorable conditions.
Right, so now all you guys have been residents here in Medina County for quite some time. Randy's probably the newest resident other than myself. So you got the gist of what Medina County is and the tone of the veterans and everything here. But let's talk a little bit about what you did after you come out of the service. So you come out of the service right out of Vietnam, Mike.
Yes, I did.
1969, 1970, so?
I got out December of '68, and I actually went back to school. I went back to Baldwin Wallace and was a psychology major with a minor in English Lit. Really didn't pursue it that heavily because I was making a living. I was living at home with my dad. My mom had just passed away. So my dad and I lived together, and I was working construction and trying to fit working construction in with going to school and carrying a full load and everything. I ended up dropping out and concentrating more on my career in construction. And that was where it went. I worked construction for 30 years, then went with Cleveland Plain Dealer for 20 years. And just retired last July.
And when did you move out here to Medina County?
I moved out in the wonderful winter of '77 and '78 when we were about elbow deep in snow.
So almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And Randy, you got out of the service after you were wounded, and you didn't lose your eyesight in service, correct? But it started to go.
It started to go. I had head injuries in Vietnam from a gunshot wound to the head, and also had a bunker cave in that that I was struck and actually stopped breathing for a while before the corpsman got me breathing again. And due to those head traumas, started losing my sight. It wasn't at all at once. It was kind of gradual, and so I wasn't really noticing that it was happening. And so even when I got back, when I left Vietnam and got back to the States, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, and then later a naval weapons station. And over that time period after I was back, they set me up into a medical situation, and then the next thing I know, they're telling me that I'm going to get discharged because of my sight loss that I had lost.
So when you got out of service, though, but you went back to college.
In 1970, I got discharged. In September of 70, I went to college, started college, and while I was going to college, I was working as a janitor for the county of San Mateo in California. And once I got my BA degree from the University of San Jose University, San Jose State University, and I graduated with my BA degree in 1974, and then I ended up getting a job working at the juvenile hall as a counselor, and then later a probation officer in the juvenile probation department. And then a short while later after that, I was appointed by the juvenile court judge to sit on the bench and adjudicate juvenile traffic and miscellaneous type cases. I could deal with everything under a felony. So misdemeanors and infractions I was dealing with. And then I retired from that situation in 1998, and in March of '99, I moved from California to Medina, Ohio.
And you moved to Medina, correct me if I'm wrong. Liz, your wife, is also blind, and her family's closer to here, and friends and stuff like that, correct?
Well, our friends, special friends that she had in college at Indiana University, but and it was a shorter drive to get to her family in Indiana from here than it was from California.
Okay. And now, Leland, you got out of the service. The Cottings have been pretty much founders of Medina County, from what I understand. I was told that when I moved here. Yeah. How long have you been in the county?
I was born actually in a home in Sharon Center, Ohio, and my folks moved back to the farm during Depression to Granger Township, and I was raised in Granger Township, and during my last few years of high school, I took an electronics course, and after I got back from service, I went to service in 1950, and I was discharged in 51, back to the farm, and my dad was in Medina one day, and the lady on the draft board approached him and said my name was coming up to be drafted, and if I wanted to get into service, something special, I better sign up. So I signed up to the Air Force, and when I went down to Canton to go through all the paperwork and everything, a recruiting sergeant from the Army came over and talked to me, and he convinced me that I'd advance faster in the Army than in the Air Force, because the Air Force at that time was so full, they was using civvies, wearing civvies on base and everything.
Well, and jumping out of airplanes is much better than flying.
Yeah,
Certainly.
and so I asked
good ones.
I asked the recruiting officer if the airborne is looking for anybody. He said, yeah. He said, so he sent the recruiting officer over and ended up signing up for the 11th the Airborne, and ended up in 11th Airborne. And took the basic training and the airborne training down. I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Took my airborne training down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and came back, and walking through the yard one day, the commanding officer came up and wanted to know if I'd be his driver. So I thought that sounded like a pretty good job. So I ended up driving the battery commander around. Made 12 jumps altogether. And
so when you come back from the service, what did you do?
I got a job with, I came back to the farm, and then I got a job with TV store in Medina Radio and TV, and worked for them for about a year and a half, 2 years, and he moved down to Florida, and we bought him out. I had two partners in the business then, and in the meantime, I'd joined the fire department as a volunteer fireman for the city of Medina. I had then in 1987, they appointed me as a volunteer fire chief for the city of Medina, and the following year, why they appointed me full time, so I sold my share of the business, and I was volunteer, or as a full-time fire chief then for 9 years for the city of Medina. Then retired in 1996, and that's kind of took it easy then for a little while.
And the reason I want to point that out is that we got 2 more board members too, Jim Coulis and Joe Destro. I think it's important for people to understand where you guys come from and what your background is, because you guys make a lot of important decisions that affects the veterans of Medina County. And you know, some people might think that, you know, well, all of you come from one walk of life, or all of you come from a certain demographic, or a certain you know, monetary level or something, and that's not true. I mean, you all 5 come from different backgrounds. You're all veterans. Some of you are Purple Heart recipients. Some of you are combat experience. Some of you are non-combat. Some of you have management experience. Some of you have factory experience. And I think that's important for the people to understand, and the veterans to understand, that there's not one person up here making a decision. You all come from different walks of life, and I think that's why you make some good decisions. Let's talk a little bit about the board. And you guys have all been on the board for a number of years, so you know what we do, you know how we do it. Let's talk a little bit about the financing and how we finance our office. And I'll just let whoever wants to start.
Well, we get our money through the county. It's a $500,000 of property tax that comes out of the county's $10 million operating levy. And what we do then is we submit a budget. We know what the max amount is by being able to calculate through, and normally the county tells us. So we will submit a budget, and we have to earmark for every special little cubby hole that we put our money into, whether it be for a vehicle purchase, for salaries, for assistance, and everything like that. And that's basically where our money comes from. Ohio is one of only, I think, 14 states that has this. So every county in Ohio has this, and it's more of a short-term assistance for somebody who is either down on their luck financially through a layoff, through an illness, through an accident, or something like that. So it's not meant as a long term, but it's meant as an assistance, and it's something that I think the veterans all earned and are entitled to.
You know, I think that's key though, is it's not welfare, and it's not meant to live off of. It's although we have financial standards that people have to meet to come in, if you don't meet those financial standards and you have some special situation, maybe your wife is sick or your husband's sick, and you've lost some income, we can still help you. And that's really what it's meant to be. It's meant to get you over those hurdles. So what do you guys look for? So someone comes into the board, and we, you know, people come in and we approve and we disapprove on a daily basis. But we also, everybody that we're not able to help at that front counter has the option to come see you guys. And what do you guys look for? And I guess I'll ask Randy this. What do you look for when someone comes in and says, I need help? And maybe they're over the income guidelines, but they have a problem.
Well, I was gonna go ahead and state that, first of all, we're guided by the Ohio revised codes, and then we also have our own bylaws from our office on what we're able to do in terms of helping the veterans and their families if they are in some kind of a need. And if any of those circumstances are such that even though they may on the surface appear that they're over income, for us to be able to help them, but if there are special circumstances like, you know, large medical bills and things of that nature were out of the ordinary that you don't pick up necessarily, and they can come in, they can make an appointment to come in at our meeting and talk to us and give us their situation, and you know, if the circumstances work out, then we can go ahead and assist them under these special circumstances that override our normal bylaws concerning the giving of the money to whatever their needs are at that time.
What about you, Leland?
Yeah, we generally go over their financial condition and certain things that come up that's unexpected. Lots of times we can help out in those special deals and get them over the hump so they can start getting back on their own wheels.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to understand that the goal here is to get them back on their own feet, not carry them through the rest of their life.
Right.
I mean, in some circumstances, there is a disability that prohibits that will be there for the rest of their life, but we try to get them back up and moving. And that's where I go back to you guys coming from a different walk of life, each one of you. I mean, you've all had your disabilities, you've all had your ups and downs, but you've also all been able to carry on with life, which I think is important to show people. The appointments, I talk about people in the appointment process with you guys all the time because a lot of our veterans organizations really don't understand how you guys are appointed and what you do and everything else. So I'll let any one of you go ahead and kind of talk through that process.
Well, the way it's set up through the state is every main veterans organization, the VFW, the Legion, the AMVETS, Vietnam Vets, Purple Heart. Which one did I forget?
DAV.
DAV. Oh my God, my home organization.
It's important. You're a representative of the VFW,
right.
and Randy is
DAV.
and
The American
Legion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So there's 5 commissioners on the board, and each one represents one of the veterans organizations. And they have a set schedule. So once every 5 years, you are up for reappointment, or your particular organization is up for reappointment. So the letter goes out to all of the chapters, posts, whatever it may be in Medina County, for them to turn in a list of 3 candidates who they would like to see sit on the board.
Right.
And the sitting commissioner can also be included on this list for a reappointment. So then it goes to the presiding common pleas judge, I believe it is, at the time, and a common pleas judge will make the appointment, and it's for a period of 5 years.
Right. Now, you know, a lot of people think like you guys are hand selected, and you're really not. You submit, and the judge selects. It's a paid position, so you are more or less appointed employees of the county. I know you guys have a board meeting a month, and then you go to your meetings back. You have an obligation, the state says, to go back to your organization and do reports back to that organization. But I think it's important for those organizations to understand how you get to where you guys are. Because it is an important position. We got veterans taking care of veterans and making decisions on how we assist our veterans, and that's important for people to know that. Let's talk a little bit about the office in general, and I know I love to talk about our office. I'm very proud of it, and I hope you guys are too. But where we've gone in the past few years with our office, I think has been great. In what we do in our office compared to maybe other offices throughout the state. So I'll just let Leland start off with that.
Yeah, it's interesting when you hear veterans that have been in the office and tell about their experience of meeting with the board if they have a problem and everything. And it really makes you feel good that you've got that veteran back on the road again and off the welfare and so he can work with his family and feel comfortable living it like he should.
Randy?
Yes, and I've heard a number of times, that veterans have mentioned to me about how well they were treated at our office, especially, not that they hadn't been there in the past, but I think it's happening more so, and they just really enjoy the ladies that work in our office. A couple have been there for many years, and they have special relationships with those veterans that have been coming in over the years, and they develop a good rapport with them, and it really feels good to know that we have an office like we have in Medina County to help the veterans with information, financial needs, and sometimes just having somebody to talk to. And I've heard all of that over the years since I've been living here about our office. I
know you guys, in the board meetings when you have someone come in and appeal their case and want or need financial assistance, I know you guys, and I see it, you guys look at a way to try to help someone. Whereas a lot of people, in social services or in this job, sometimes look to deny people. What can I use here so I don't help you? And I know you guys are the complete opposite of that. You look for the reason that we should help you or we can help you to try to fix your problem or correct the circumstance that you're going through. And I think that's important for people to understand, instead of, looking for, well, you got too much money here, you got this, that. What's the problem and the reason we need to help you, and let's move on from there and help the veteran or the family member. So I think that's important for people to understand also. Mike, what do you think? You've been the president now for a few years. What do you think about the office?
I think it's running great. What I like is the way we can interact with the other county agencies and our location on that campus up there with everything else. It works out wonderfully, and I like the way we've come into, even though I'm still a dinosaur on a computer, the way we've come into the computer age, the strides forward that the VA has made, the state Veteran Service has made,
The
and
Ohio
everything.
Department of Veteran Services.
Right. It's wonderful, and we've been getting nothing but good reports, both from the veterans community locally and from when we go down like to Columbus or some of these district and regional meetings for training and everything. We're getting just positive feedback about Medina County, how they're one of the top ones in the state and everything. And for us, that's a big ego booster and everything. And it's good that somebody recognizes that we are doing a good job, not hearing all the negative feedback that we.
I know there's talk throughout the state on financing and budgets and all that, and we don't necessarily use our whole $500,000 that we're allocated. We don't use our whole appropriations on a regular basis, and there's always going to be people that we can't help. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. And I don't think anybody's an advocate to just start handing out tax dollars to veterans if they're not in need. And I think you guys, owe it to the taxpayers, because this is tax dollars, that, we have to be good advocates and watch the money that we spend. But I don't think there's any veterans out there that we should be helping that we aren't helping.
No.
With that said, I mean.
Right.
I think we've done a real good job getting the word out.
Yeah.
Where before we were like the redheaded stepchild that nobody knew about, and now.
Well, we did quite a bit of marketing,
No, definitely.
When it comes down to the VA, the paperless thing, the VA is going paperless, so we're right on track doing that. I go back a few years, we had 800,000 people coming in the office in a year. This year, I think we're going to peak over 4,000. So, we got 13,000 vets in the county, and we're seeing a third of them or a quarter of them or whatever that breaks out to be, which is important. Randy, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to just say that, through the office's work, and with all the extra veterans that we're now seeing in our office in a yearly basis, and through the VA, we've gotten a lot more money brought back to the county, which that money is being spent here. So it's a win-win situation when you're helping your local veterans in Medina County through everything that needs to be done with the VA and the VA comp that comes back here to the county with all the help that's given to the veterans, and not only having them come to their office to get that help, but also then through the VA, and then the money comes back here.
Yeah, $32 million last year is about
last
what
year.
came back to Medina County through federal tax dollars to our veterans. So the $1 million, $1.2 million that we spend of the county's money pays off in dividends back to our veterans. I think that's important
And
for
our
people
county.
to know too. And our county too, because the money gets spent here. A lot of that is health care. A lot of it is dollars directly in veterans' pockets. I think about half of it, a little more than half, is dollars right in their pockets with pensions and compensations, and then the other half is health care. Yeah.
And I also think your newsletter that is put out gets to a lot of veterans, letting them know that the Veterans Office is there for them, and to come in and get the word out that there's help there if they need it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, we've really tried to reach out to the veterans organizations. The newsletter is one of them, going to some of their meetings and bring them in the fold to our office, because you guys are all representatives of those organizations. And my thought process was, military mindset is, they're in the trenches. They're out there in the communities. They're in Brunswick, they're in Wadsworth, they're in Lodi, they're in Valley City, they're in Spencer, they're in Medina. They know the vets.
Right.
And we're kind of the headquarters. So if you got a vet that needs help, by all means, send them to us, and we're going to try to help them. And the rebound of that too is I've called those posts, 2 years ago, I called Valley City on Christmas Day and said, we got somebody that doesn't have any food. Can you get them a meal today? And they went out and delivered Christmas dinners to a couple vets in those communities. So it's a good working relationship I think we've developed. And I think that's important. I mean, it really is. Any last thoughts before we close up here? Leland?
No, I've really enjoyed being being a commissioner, and it's really gratifying to see someone come in and get help and see him leave happy from the office. It really and it's I think a good organization, and it's run good, and we've I think got the word out good, and a lot of veterans come in that probably wouldn't be there if it wouldn't been for the way that the office is handled.
Randy?
It's been a privilege and an honor to be able to serve in Medina County on this commission, to serve our veterans in our community and help those that are really in need of help, and just let them know that there is a process there for them and their families. If they ever need any kind of help, they can always come to us, and we'll do the best we can for them.
And Mr. President, Mike.
Whoa, I don't know if I can top that one. Well, I joined the VFW in '69 right after I got back home, and I was basically disillusioned with the help that I was getting from the VA and everything else. And until 20 years ago, when I started recognizing that, hey, maybe they've made improvements and maybe I ought to change my opinion and research some of this stuff and everything, when I finally realized that, well, instead of sitting back and just complaining and grousing about what they didn't do, maybe I should get on board and help out, and maybe we can, in our small way, change things. And I think we have, and like Leland and Randy both said, we've gotten the word out to the veterans who may not know exactly what goes on and everything, and we try to educate them as much as we're educating the public in general.
Right. And we're always looking at those policies. I mean, and people are always welcome to come and,
Right.
and say, hey, we think maybe you could do things better. The veterans groups could say, maybe you should change this, and we look at those every year. I want to thank my bosses, 3 members of the Medina County Veterans Service Commission, for joining me today. They have an open meeting. It's a public meeting. It is the second Thursday of every month at 4 o'clock in our office boardroom. Anyone that would like to come is welcome to come. Anyone that would like to appeal anything that our office has decided is welcome to come to those meetings and see these gentlemen. So I want to thank them again for coming. Appreciate it, guys. And thanks for joining us for today's Salute to Service.
Ho, ho! What's this? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year!